I have big dogs in the back. What's up, Mike? Hello, fella.
Have you heard of a lot of people with a laid-back drawl, unmistakable flow, and cool-as-ice persona? I'm referring to the one and only Snoop Dogg. He is one of the most recognizable voices in music, but here's what makes Snoop's story different. Before the platinum plaques and global fame, he was discovered by none other than Dr. Dre after a homemade freestyle tape made its way into Dre's hands. Snoop's journey wasn't just music. He survived a highly publicized 1990s murder trial and came out acquitted, a turning point that shaped both his image and his artistry. Over the decades, he's reinvented himself again and again. More than 30 years in the game, countless hits, cultural icon status, a voice that defined an era. This isn't just the story of a rapper, it's the evolution of a brand, a businessman, and a global personality. Join me as we explore every aspect of his life, but first, smash the like button and subscribe. Now, back to where it all began. Long before the world knew the smooth-voiced icon called Snoop Dogg, there was a skinny kid named Calvin Cordozar Broadus Jr., growing up in the sun-drenched neighborhoods of Long Beach, California, where he was born on October 20th, 1971. Life in East Side Long Beach was vibrant but unforgiving, a place where music, street culture, and economic struggle lived side by side. It was here that Calvin's story began to take shape, molded by the rhythms of his surroundings and the resilience of a single mother determined to raise her sons in a city that didn't always make room for hope. When Calvin was only 4, his mother, Beverly Tate, and stepfather split, leaving her to guide her boys through a world that demanded toughness. Though the city was heavy with gang activity and hardship, inside their home, music gave Calvin a refuge. He sang in church, played the piano with natural ease, and absorbed the sounds of funk, soul, and early hip-hop that moved through the streets like a lifeline. These early melodies were more than entertainment. They were the blueprint for the man he would become. But childhood wasn't simple. Calvin was a bright kid. He sold candy, delivered newspapers, joined the choir, played football, and yet Long Beach had a way of pulling young boys toward its darker edges. As he got older, he found himself drifting toward the streets. Still, every time he started to slip, music pulled him back. It became the one place where he felt powerful and seen. By the time he reached 6th grade, he was rapping, not timidly, not quietly, but with a presence that drew entire crowds in school hallways. Teachers would rush over thinking there was a fight, only to find dozens of kids forming a circle around Calvin as he unleashed verses that seemed to rise straight from the spirit of Long Beach itself. That was when Calvin realized he wasn't just rapping, he had a gift. Outside school walls, life continued to challenge him. The streets tested him, the police watched him, and temptation followed him closely. But the same environment that threatened to swallow him whole also sharpened his voice, shaped his storytelling, and gave him the authenticity that would one day captivate the world. Calvin's early recordings with his cousins, Nate Dogg and Lil Half Dead, and his friend Warren G were raw, honest, and soaked in Long Beach truth. They formed a trio called 213, the area code that raised them. Their homemade tapes carried the grit of their upbringing, and one of those tapes found its way into the hands of Dr. Dre. Hearing Calvin's smooth, laid-back delivery, Dre knew immediately that he had discovered something rare. In 1992, Snoop made his explosive debut on Dre's single, Deep Cover, and then on Dre's seminal album, The Chronic, delivering flowing verses on tracks like Nothing But a G-Thing that helped define the G-Funk era. Overnight, he became the new face of West Coast rap. The world waited to see if he could carry an album on his own. And in 1993, he did more than that. He made history. Snoop's debut album, Doggy Style, entirely produced by Dr. Dre, entered the Billboard 200 at #1, selling 806,000 copies in its first week, a then record for a debut. Tracks like Gin and Juice and What's My Name cemented his status as a phenomenon. The album would go on to be certified quadruple platinum, but meteoric rise comes with turbulence. In the midst of recording, Snoop faced a highly publicized murder charge. He was later acquitted, but the case tied him to the courts for years and cast a dramatic shadow over his early career. Still, he pushed forward, releasing his second album, The Dogfather, in 1996, which also debuted at #1. It marked the end of an era, though. By then, the gangster rap movement was shifting, Death Row Records was fracturing, and Snoop needed a new home. That home came in the late 1990s under Master P's No Limit Records, where Snoop reinvented himself with albums like The Game Is to Be Sold, Not to Be Told, 1998, and No Limit Top Dog, 1999. This era showcased his adaptability, same smooth delivery, new sonic palette. It proved that Snoop wasn't just a product of G-Funk, he was a genre unto himself, capable of gliding across any beat, any style. Through the 2000s, he became more than a rapper. He became Snoop Dogg, a full-blown cultural figure. His 2004 album, R&G, Rhythm and Gangsta, the masterpiece, produced the global smash Drop It Like It's Hot, his first Billboard Hot 100 #1 single. It was a moment of reinvention, proving that decades into his career, he could still dominate the charts with ease. But Snoop wasn't done evolving. In 2013, after a spiritual journey through Jamaica, he re-emerged as Snoop Lion, releasing a reggae album titled Reincarnated, along with a documentary exploring his transformation. It was unexpected, bold, and deeply personal, evidence that Snoop refused to be boxed in. As the years moved on, his influence only expanded. He took on acting roles, became a media personality, founded Doggy Style Records, took ownership of Death Row Records, and even stepped into executive creative work at Def Jam. His voice, once just the soundtrack of Long Beach, became one of the most recognizable sounds in entertainment. Snoop Dogg's life is a tale of a rapper who succeeded. It is the evolution of a man who learned to master reinvention. Whether it was G-Funk, gangster rap, mainstream pop, reggae, reality TV, business ownership, or cultural commentary, he approached everything with the same ease, the same charm, and the same unmistakable cool. Next up is what pumps his wealth. Snoop Dogg's rise into the upper tiers of global entertainment is more than a tale of fame. It's the evolution of a cultural force into a financial empire. In 2026, his wealth stands impressively between $160 and $180 million, a reflection of decades spent not just influencing music, but mastering the business behind it. His journey begins in Long Beach, where Calvin Cortazar Broadus Jr. learned early how to shape the rhythm of his environment into poetry. That voice eventually reached Dr. Dre, propelling him into the spotlight through The Chronic, and then his own chart-topping debut, Doggy Style, a moment that secured him as more than an artist. He became a symbol of West Coast identity. But Snoop never stopped at music. What sets him apart is his ability to grow beyond the stage, expanding effortlessly into places no one expected. The most defining of those moves came years later when he acquired Death Row Records, the very label that helped launch his career. Under his guidance, Death Row transformed into a modern content machine, thriving on streaming, licensing, documentary development, and even next-generation tech like AI-driven music and Web3 entertainment. The label became not just a nostalgic trophy, but one of his most valuable assets. What fuels Snoop's financial power is a unique kind of branding genius. Everything he touches carries the same laid-back charisma that audiences have loved for decades. His cannabis ventures, including Leafs by Snoop and his investments through Casa Verde Capital, established him early as a major player in the legal cannabis economy. Those ventures, alongside television appearances, product partnerships, tech investments, and global licensing deals, have woven together a multi-industry empire. Even his voice alone commands a premium. A single Snoop Dogg verse runs around $250,000, with another $250,000 required for him to appear in the music video. Proof that his presence isn't just iconic, it's profitable on sight. By 2026, his influence had expanded so far that it reached the global stage, literally. As part of NBC's team during the 2026 Winter Olympics in Milano Cortina, Snoop served as an on-air correspondent and honorary motivator for Team USA, bringing humor, charm, and viral moments to audiences around the world. His Zamboni ride alone became a social media hit, reminding everyone that no matter the setting, Snoop Dogg remains effortlessly himself. At 54 years old, Snoop stands not just as a rapper, but as a brand architect, a business strategist, a cultural historian, and an entrepreneur whose ventures span generations. His wealth today reflects more than music royalties or celebrity endorsements. It reflects ownership, innovation, and a lifetime spent turning cultural relevance into long-term power. His legacy continues to grow, not in sudden bursts, but with the same smooth, steady cadence that has defined his entire life. Snoop Dogg is a king as his own kingdom, and that kingdom is in California. California hillsides, tucked into gated communities and stretched into digital worlds where the borders of reality bend. His real estate story isn't the sprawling, over-the-top empire you might expect from a hip-hop icon. Instead, it's deliberate, rooted, personal, like everything Snoop does. The heart of that story lies in Diamond Bar, California, where Snoop has lived for more than 2 decades. Purchased in 1998 for just $720,000, the 3,808-square-foot mansion sits inside a private, gated community east of Los Angeles. It's modest by celebrity standards, but that's the point. The home has 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, and a backyard anchored by a pool and hot tub. A peaceful retreat carved out long before his fame grew into a global brand. Over the years, he expanded his slice of Diamond Bar by acquiring the neighboring property, giving him more space for family life, quiet work, and the occasional smoke session in the privacy of his own sanctuary. Step inside, and the home tells the story of the man who built it. It's comfortable, personalized, and unmistakably Snoop, with a recording studio, a home theater, and rooms styled with his signature West Coast ease. Outside, a pool glimmers under the California sun, while a basketball court stretches across the property. It's not a palace, it's a base, a place to retreat, create, and stay grounded while the world demands a lot from the Dogfather. But not all of Snoop's world is quiet or domestic. Down in Inglewood, he owns something far more dynamic, the Compound. This 20,000-square-foot creative fortress is where Snoop's imagination roams. It houses recording studios, editing bays, and even an NBA regulation basketball court. Inside these walls, music, visuals, and business collide. Every idea, every collaboration born in the kind of energy only Snoop's world can generate. To him, this is more than a property. It's a creative temple, the heartbeat of his empire. A different kind of home sits far from California, in Douglasville, Georgia, where Snoop purchased a 6-bedroom, 4-bath brick mansion in 2021 for $458,000. Cozy, modern, and surprisingly understated, the house sits on a wooded acre, offering southern quiet that contrasts sharply with the lights of Los Angeles. It appears Snoop never lived there. Instead, it seems to have been an anchor point near his father's home, a gesture of closeness more than a personal retreat. By 2024, the property was listed for $575,000, a simple, clean investment move, typical of Snoop's unshowy approach to real estate. His real-world portfolio doesn't end there. Back in the 90s, long before his business empire took shape, Snoop's earliest home sat in Claremont, California. Bought for around $600,000 in 1994 and expanded to 6,500 square feet, it featured in an iconic MTV Cribs episode before being sold in 2007 for $1.83 million, a profitable early sign of the business instincts he would later hone. Then there's the property no other rapper can claim, the one that doesn't sit on land at all. In the virtual world of the sandbox, Snoop built the Snoopverse, complete with a digital mansion, NFT galleries, and concert arenas. In 2021, plots next to his virtual estate sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and by 2025, his virtual holdings were valued anywhere from $500,000 to $1.5 million. It's an extension of Snoop's identity, half futurist, half cultural architect, always stepping into new realms before most of the industry even realizes the door is open. Across real and virtual worlds, what Snoop Dogg owns reflects who he is. Not a man obsessed with excessive luxury, but one who prizes privacy, creativity, family, and the freedom to build and rebuild his own universe. His mansions aren't monuments to wealth. They're chapters in a life that has grown from Long Beach corners into global spaces, grounded in intention and elevated by imagination. If he is to be considered a king, then of course he has to ride like royalty, and he does, for sure. Snoop Dogg's garage is less a collection and more an autobiography, told not in chapters, but in chrome, hydraulics, leather, and horsepower. Each car carries a memory, a mood, and a message, and together they form a West Coast symphony of steel, rolling proof that the Dogfather doesn't just make history, he drives it. The journey begins with the classics, the heart of Snoop's identity. His 1966 Pontiac Parisienne Lakers edition sits proudly in a robe of purple and gold, a low-riding tribute to the team he's loved for decades. This custom cruiser, valued at around $90,000, glides with the confidence of a man who's been repping LA since day one. Parked nearby is Brown Sugar, his 1967 Cadillac DeVille, long and elegant, a time capsule of smooth 60s luxury. Estimated at $110,000, the car reflects that signature Snoop Dogg cool, laid back, unbothered, unforgettable. Hidden deeper in the lineup, the lowrider crown rests on the 1974 Cadillac Snoop DeVille. Customized to the extreme with lime green paint and heavy chrome, the car carries a value of roughly $150,000, but its cultural worth is far beyond the price tag. It's the kind of ride that turns a boulevard into a parade. But Snoop's garage doesn't live solely in nostalgia. A crisp 2006 Chrysler 300C, worth about $45,000, stands as a reminder of early 2000s swagger. Gifted to him and tailored to his taste, complete with oversized rims and tinted glass. Nearby, the 2011 Ford Mustang GT Funkmaster Flex Edition adds muscle to the mix, valued at $70,000 and pulsing with custom-tuned attitude. Then the collection takes a futuristic turn. The 2015 Polaris Slingshot, the Batman, looks less like a car and more like a comic book gadget, its chrome blue shell and purple interior making it feel downright animated. Worth around $55,000, it reflects Snoop's playful side, bold, flashy, and unmistakably him. Sitting quietly but powerfully in contrast is the 2017 Tesla Model X, fully electric and valued at $100,000. With falcon wing doors and a whisper-silent drive, it shows Snoop's softer embrace of modern tech, proof that even the Dogfather appreciates a smooth, clean ride. But when he wants speed with European finesse, the Dogfather reaches for red. The Ferrari 458 Italia, roaring with a V8 and a bold price tag around $250,000. Whether cruising through LA or idling in the driveway, it screams presence, the kind that makes even celebs do double takes. Luxury gets even louder with the Rolls-Royce Ghost, one of the most regal machines in his collection. Valued at over $300,000, the Ghost moves like velvet over pavement, a silent, polished symbol of how far Snoop has traveled from Long Beach blocks to global stages. Anchoring the modern fleet is the Cadillac Escalade, a full-size SUV coming in at approximately $120,000. Dark, imposing, effortlessly stylish, it's the vehicle you picture when Snoop pulls up to the studio or rolls out for a night in Hollywood. And for raw American muscle, the Dodge Challenger SRT8 adds intensity, valued at around $75,000, and beloved by Snoop for its growling acceleration and classic power. With more than a dozen vehicles across decades of automotive culture, Snoop Dogg's collection is defined by identity. Every car in his garage tells a story, and together, they paint the portrait of a legend still cruising through the chapters of his life. And dare I say, what is a rapper without his bling? Snoop Dogg's world has always shimmered, sometimes with diamonds, sometimes with charisma, sometimes with both at once. Step inside his jewelry universe, and you'll find what truly shines. First is a piece that feels almost mythical, the Death Row gold chain. Created to honor his takeover of Death Row Records, it isn't just jewelry, it's legacy cast in metal. Crafted by Shop GLD, the chain carries over 250 grams of gold and 13 carats of diamonds, sculpted into a pendant of a dog with Snoop's iconic braids seated on a throne. Its price tag mirrors its grandeur, a staggering $300,000, a golden monument to a career that rewrote West Coast history. But the chain carries more than weight, it carries connection. Snoop has gifted custom Death Row chains to artists like Ed Sheeran and athletes like Steph Curry, symbols of shared respect and artistic brotherhood. The chain isn't just worn, it's bestowed. Sitting deeper in his collection is the infamous lion chain. The lion isn't just a design, it's a declaration, a reminder of a time when Snoop embraced every part of himself, unfiltered and unapologetic. But as the years evolved, so did the Dogfather's jewelry. And nowhere is this clearer than in the launch of his 2024 to 2025 fine jewelry line, Love Child. In collaboration with Carolyn Raphaelian, founder of Metal Alchemist, and Alex and Ani, Snoop crafted a collection not rooted in status, but in intention. These pieces, Cuban chain bracelets and necklaces, the broadest rings, the paisley love motifs, are unisex, timeless, spiritually charged, and built to be worn as symbols of empowerment. Prices range from accessible to luxurious. Cuban bracelets starting at $128, the broadest ring beginning at $188, rising to $418 in gold vermeil with white zirconia stones. Each piece is handcrafted in Rhode Island, designed not just to sparkle, but to radiate meaning. The story behind Love Child is as emotional as it is stylish. It's his way of giving people something more than jewelry, something spiritual, something grounding, something positive, a wearable reminder that love is the thread stitching his legacy together. The pieces reflect his wife, his children, his grandchildren. Their energy is present, even if their hands were not. With 45 pieces in the collection, each one mirrors a facet of the broadest family spirit. Next on our agenda is the family side of Snoop. Despite the turmoil of his youth, the story that anchors Snoop Dogg's personal life is a love story, one that began long before the world knew his name. In high school, he met Shantae Taylor, the young woman who would become his partner, his confidant, and the quiet architect of stability behind his meteoric rise. They went to prom together in 1989, two kids with no idea that one of them would soon be one of the biggest names in hip-hop. They married in 1997, standing together through fame, controversy, reinvention, and every chapter in between. Their marriage has outlasted decades of industry chaos, making it one of the longest and strongest partnerships in entertainment. They share 3 children, sons Corday and Cordell, and daughter Corey, while Snoop also has a son, Julian, from a previous relationship. His children are grown now, entrepreneurs, creatives, parents themselves. Through the years, Snoop has embraced the role of father and grandfather with surprising tenderness, often speaking about how family is the truest measure of his legacy. Snoop Dogg may belong to the world, but his heart belongs to the people who knew him long before the world did. Thanks for joining in, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Drop a like, share, and subscribe on your way out, and hopefully I'll be seeing you in the next one.